In this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and show you how we can take an image and put it in the background of a viewport in order to use that image to trace an object in 3D. So what we're going to begin is I'm going to start out here in Photoshop. And even if you don't have Photoshop, if you have any type of other program, Paint, Fireworks, or anything of that nature, you can even actually do this by hand, drawing and scanning it into the computer. But I'm going to go ahead, my choice is Photoshop. And when I begin, I start with a new canvas here that's going to allow me to choose the size. I'm going to go with a 640 by 480 pixels. Now again, make sure you have pixels and not inches. That would be an awfully large drawing. We just need pixels because we're going to be putting this digitally on the computer. I'm going to hit OK. Now I have this blank canvas here. The first thing I want to do is choose a blue color. And the specific color is not going to be a big deal. I'm just going to be kind of cliche here and stay with blue because of the term blueprint. And I use my paint bucket to drop in a little bit of blue. Next I'm going to add a new layer, and this is the layer that I'm actually going to use to create my lines, my blueprint. I'm going to pick another color here. I don't want white, but I'm going to go with like a light blue here, maybe like a purple. I'm going to select my paintbrush, and I'm going to choose a brush size about 13 pixels. Seems to work. Now, when you draw and you click, you make little circles. Well, I want to step back a couple times. I don't really want circles around my project. What I want is straight lines that represent a wall. So in order to do that, you click, hold Shift, and then click again, and that will make a straight line between point A and point B. Better yet, you can hold Shift while you drag, and no matter which way you drag, up or down, you'll notice that it constrains it to one direction. Now I release my Shift and I start my second line. What I'm doing here is just making some real generic walls. This is sort of like a blueprint of my room. I'll explain the color in a little while, and they don't have to be perfect. This is just a representation. You may also want to determine where your windows are. I'm going to go ahead and just make a couple little I'll click and drag here, make a window there, click, drag here, make a window there, and maybe I'll make a door here. Notice I didn't cut a hole in the walls, and I'll explain to that once we get into 3D, but this here is just a very generic version of a blueprint. You could also use a blueprint from a computer-aided drafter, or even sketch something out by hand, scan it in, and save it. I'm going to go ahead and save this as a JPEG. The reason why I want a JPEG is because it is web safe. It works very nice in 3ds Max. We'll just call it floor plan. And I hit save. Save it to high quality, that way it's visible. And now I can go ahead and close Photoshop. Now I'm in 3ds Max. And the first step that we want to do in order to get this picture in our background is to determine which viewport it's supposed to be in. Because I'm looking at the top, from the top down into the room, I want to select the top viewport. With the top viewport selected, I then go up to my application bar, hit Views, Viewport Background, Viewport Background. This dialog box is going to ask me some vital questions here. Number one, what's the item that I want to put in the background? So when I hit Files, I navigate to the location where I had my file, and I put mine on the desktop, called Floor Plan, and I hit Open. Step 2 is to select Match Bitmap. I do not want Max distorting my picture. I want it to stay the same ratio that I created. If not, my walls will be distorted. And third, we want Lock, Zoom, and Pan, because we're going to be zooming in and out on this project while we're making the walls. Hit OK. Now I can use my middle mouse to scroll back and in and out, and I can see that I can move this around, and I have a floor plan. I'm going to maximize that. I want it set so that I can see the whole room in one shot. I don't want to have to zoom in and out while I'm drawing these lines because Max doesn't like that. Create shapes line. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw a line around the outside walls here. Keep in mind that the reason why I had you change these colors is because the line I'm making is white. And if your background was white, it'd be very hard to see white on white. Just like in Photoshop, to make a straight line, I can click a point, hold Shift, and that keeps my line nice and straight. Once I click, I can move down the line and make my other walls. I come to my starting point, hover over that, and click. When you're close enough, it's going to ask if you want to close the spline. Yes, we want to close it because we're not going to be able to generate a 3D project if there are open ends. Hit yes. Now, we could look ahead right now and say, all right, we have this outline, and I could extrude these walls, but then my room would be filled solid. That defeats the purpose. We want hollow walls, or we want to be able to stand inside our room. So what we have to do is go in and create another pass on the inside walls using the same technique. Just holding Shift while I click. I'm not dragging my mouse. If you drag, you'll get that curve, and we don't want that. We want our walls nice and straight. So I'm just holding Shift, clicking various locations here, and again I'm going to close this wall. Now, this wall is not perfectly straight, and I can fix that later on with a command that we'll learn later. But now, when we're looking at our perspective view, we have an outside wall and an inside wall. In order to extrude the area in between the inside and outside lines, we need to combine these into one particular shape. To do that, you can select either of the shapes, hit Modify, and in the Modify panel you will see the option that says Attach. Once you select Attach, you can hover over the other line, and this little white and black circle next to a white and white circle pops up. That's telling you that you can attach this line to the original. Once I click, now both lines are the same colors, and if I select Off and back on, you will notice that we have just one item in our scene right now. Let's go ahead and call that wall while we're at it. Our next step is to give this wall some thickness. If I hit Modify and come down my list, I have Extrude. By default, Extrude doesn't move anywhere until I actually raise the amount. Now what you'll notice here is that as I raise the amount, our room seems to appear different sizes. If I was to leave this right here, our room would look very large down inside there because of the distance. But as I increase this up, notice how it looks more like a small closet or a bathroom now as opposed to a large room. So depending on the proportion of the height of your walls to the rest of your room, that's going to be a big issue that you're going to have to consider when building your model. Now, there are ways of setting architectural settings, and we'll do that in a future lesson. Today, I just want you to have some fun with this and kind of pick the size that you think looks good. I'm going to go with that. Let's save. I'm going to go ahead and put that on my desktop, and I'm going to call it floor plan, or better yet, let's call it walls. And hit save. The next step is to put some doors and windows in. I'm going to go ahead and create a box. Up here in my top view, I know that I need a window there, so I'm going to draw a box that extrudes proportionately through both the front and the back wall. And then I also can adjust the height and the width of that in my other viewports here. The key element here is that this box, we're going to cut this box out. We're going to take this box, we're going to remove it from the wall. So this box needs to be the size that you want your window. So whatever size that may be, locate it where you want it. And I'll change that color for video purposes. Now, while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to clone this window again. Might as well keep the windows the same size and hit OK. I'm going to use the compound object Boolean method. I'm going to select my walls, go to Create, Geometry, Compound Objects, Boolean. That has the operation down here of subtraction A minus B. A is my pink walls. B is going to be these blocks, but Max doesn't know that this is B until I hit the word pick operand B, and I select. Now it quickly removes there. I'm going to go ahead and click off, back on, repeat the same procedure for the next window. Now I have two holes in my windows, and I'll be able to shine some light in through those in a little bit. One last step here before we move on to our final phase, and that's to put a door in. Same procedure. Start off with a standard primitive that's going to protrude through both ends of your door. Make sure in the other views that you raise it up high enough to look like a door. I think mine's a little thick here. Visually, I think that'll look a little better. And again, I'm going to use the same procedure. Select my walls, compound object, Boolean. A minus B is set. B is going to be the hole through the wall. Okay. You can do that for all the windows and doors that you're going to need in your room. I'm going to go ahead and File, Save. Final step. How do we make a floor? As many people would try, you might go out and keep it really simple here and use a standard primitive known as a plane. Now the problem with this is that when eventually I go in and start looking through these windows, I may see my floor outside of the house, which isn't very realistic. So the preferred way of creating our floor is to go in and use the same method we use for the walls. Take the line tool and just create a shape inside the existing walls. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect because we're not going to see the edges of the floor because the walls are going to cover them. And I'm going to extrude that. Now when you extrude, it automatically takes the last extrusion amount that you had, which was the walls. All we have to do is just lower the extrusion down, or even type in here 0.5, just to make a nice thin floor. Our final step is to make a ceiling, and that is really easy because all we have to do is select the floor, hold Shift, and if you're in a perspective view, use your transform gizmo and the blue arrow to just raise that up. And notice we made a clone. So now we have a ceiling, we have a floor. Name those appropriately so you don't get them confused. This is ceiling or roof. This is floor. You might even want to change the colors just so you can visually take tab. For instance, maybe my floor is going to be like a brown, where my ceiling is going to be. I'll do a light blue. I don't want to do white because until we're done with our materials, you don't want to make anything white because then it looks like it's always selected. Again, we can go ahead and move these things out of the way while we're navigating around and adding stuff in. But in the next lesson, I will show you how to make some basic furniture that will be very useful for your house. And you should be able to take it from here, creating doors and windows using the various standard primitives. And we'll see you in the next video.